Welcome to Mr. Disturbing. Tonight, we're plunging into the dark heart of the Appalachians with some truly unsettling true horror stories. That'll keep you up all night. If you're brave enough, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next descent into fear. My name is Cole Rayner. I'm 39 years old. I live alone in the hills outside of Waynesville, North Carolina, a small town tucked deep into the southern edge of the Appalachian Mountains. I'm a land appraiser, the kind of guy folks hire when they're looking to sell old tracts of land or settle disputes over forgotten boundaries. It's not glamorous work, but it pays, and it gives me an excuse to roam the mountains, which I've always loved. I've spent my life exploring these ridges and hollows. I know the local stories, the old ghost tales, the whispers of things seen and heard out in the deep woods. I never gave them much weight, until last spring. That was when I was hired to appraise a piece of land far up a ridge called Hollowback Spur, near the border of Haywood County. It was old land, untouched for decades. Belonged to some absentee family out west, trying to offload it. No one had lived up there since before World War II. No roads, no power. Just a faint trace of an old wagon path. I was intrigued. Remote places like that can be dangerous. Unstable ground, wildlife. So I prepared accordingly. Packed my usual kit, topo maps, satellite phone, compass, sidearm, food, tent. I figured I'd camp one night on the ridge and hike the property lines the next day. The first part of the hike was uneventful. The forest was dense but beautiful, early spring bloom, sunlight filtering through young leaves. The old wagon path was nearly gone, more of a deer trail now, choked with brush. After several miles, the forest grew noticeably darker, the trees taller, older, the undergrowth sparse as though nothing wanted to grow beneath that canopy. The air grew still, unnaturally so. Even the birdsong faded. I pressed on, uneasy but stubborn. By late afternoon, I reached the edge of the property, marked by an ancient stone wall, half collapsed, moss-covered. Beyond it, the forest opened into a broad saddle between two ridges. I set up camp beneath a massive oak. Its limbs twisted like grasping fingers. The light faded quickly. The silence deepened. I ate, made notes, and turned in early. That night I woke to footsteps, soft, deliberate, circling my tent. I lay frozen, listening. They were slow, too heavy for any deer, too smooth for bear. The steps paused by the tent flap. I could hear breathing, deep, steady. Then a low voice right at the canvas, "You don't belong here." Cold fear shot through me. I grabbed my sidearm and unzipped the flap in one motion. But there was nothing. No one. The forest was silent. The moon high and bright. No footprints, no sign of anyone. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At first light, I packed up, determined to finish the survey quickly and get out. As I moved along the old boundary line, I noticed strange things. Trees bent low, almost arching over the path, bark scarred with deep gouges, small piles of stones stacked deliberately at intervals. And at one point, an old iron bell, half buried in the ground, rusted through with strange symbols etched around its rim. The deeper I went, the stronger the feeling of being watched became. The air grew colder, damp. The woods seemed to shift behind me, as though the land itself was changing shape. I began seeing movement in the periphery, pale forms darting between trees, too fast, too tall, limbs too long. Each time I turned, they were gone. The boundary line led me to an ancient homestead site, little more than a stone chimney and a collapsed root cellar. The ground around it was bare, no vegetation. Scorched, and in the ash, fresh footprints, bare, large, splayed. I backed away, pulse racing. That was when the whispers began. Faint at first, just beyond hearing. Then clearer, voices speaking in a language I didn't know, layered over each other, circling me. I ran, no shame in it. Survival instinct kicked in. The forest seemed endless. The path was gone, landmarks vanished. My compass spun uselessly. The satellite phone gave only static, and the whispers followed, growing louder, more urgent, filled with hate. When I finally stumbled into a clearing near dusk, I was exhausted, disoriented. And that was when I saw them, a circle of figures standing among the trees. Tall, thin, faces pale and featureless, their heads tilted in unison as they watched me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The chanting rose, pressing against my skull. Then, darkness. I don't remember falling. Just the cold, the silence, and something touching my mind, marking me. When I woke, it was night. The figures were gone, the forest silent. But I knew something had changed. I was not alone anymore. I staggered through the darkness for hours, driven by blind instinct. My body moving though my mind felt detached, as if something was guiding me deeper instead of out. The forest seemed alive now, the air thick and heavy with unseen presence. The whispers never stopped. They hissed just beneath hearing, their meaning unclear but their intent unmistakable, to wear me down, to keep me lost. Shapes moved in the dark, flickering between the trees. Each time I caught a glimpse, they vanished. My flashlight's beam seemed swallowed by the mist that now curled low along the ground. I tried to mark my path with chalk on the trees, but when I looked back, the marks were gone. At one point, I stumbled into another clearing. A ring of stones half buried in the earth, the ground within them black and barren. Animal bones lay scattered at the edges, gnawed and brittle. In the center, a single standing stone rose from the earth, carved with spirals and worn figures too faded to decipher. The air around it pulsed, almost humming. My skin crawled. I backed away, but the forest seemed to press closer with every step, hurting me. At some point, exhaustion overtook me. I collapsed against the roots of a massive tree, unable to keep moving. The whispers faded as sleep dragged me down. When I woke, it was dawn, or what passed for dawn here. The light was dim, gray. The forest unchanged, still wrong. I forced myself upright and pushed forward. Hunger gnawed at me. My canteen was nearly empty. Worse, my sense of direction was gone entirely. The ridge I should have been climbing never appeared. The terrain folded unnaturally, drawing me into deeper hollows. As I walked, I began to notice the trees were changing. Their bark darkened, sap oozing black and foul-smelling. Their branches twisted together overhead, forming an almost tunnel-like path. The air grew colder. My breath steamed with each exhale, and the whispers returned, louder now, clearer. I began to understand fragments, bound, taken, never leave. I quickened my pace, panic rising. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time meant little in that place. I stumbled upon what looked like another homestead ruin, a stone foundation, rotted timbers collapsed inward. Nearby stood a small iron gate, rusted but intact, partially open. Beyond it, old stone steps led downward into darkness. The compulsion to enter was overwhelming, though every instinct screamed to run. My legs carried me to the threshold. The air spilling from below was icy, metallic. Somewhere beneath, something moved. a wet, slithering sound, followed by faint chanting. I forced myself back, trembling. But even as I turned away, I knew this place had claimed me. The marks were already on my skin, faint spiral scars that had not been there before, now raised along my forearms and neck. I covered them and moved on, driven now by pure terror. The forest was alive with movement. Pale figures watched from every shadow, their heads tilting in unnatural synchrony. Once I caught one fully in my light. Tall, gaunt, limbs too long, its face smooth and blank save for two hollow pits where eyes should be. It made no sound, only stood and stared. When I blinked, it was gone. My mind frayed. I began hearing my name whispered from every direction. Cole, stay, belong. I fled blindly, crashing through underbrush, tearing my clothes, bleeding from countless cuts. The forest shifted around me, trails looped endlessly. No matter how far I ran, I always seemed to return to the same landmarks. The stone ring, the black tree, the spiral-marked stone. I was trapped. On the third night, cold and broken, I found another clearing, smaller this time, lit by pale bioluminescent fungi clinging to the trunks. At its center stood an old wooden effigy, human-shaped, bound with sinew and twine, crowned with antlers. As I approached, the chanting rose again, deafening. My vision blurred. The air thickened. The effigy's head slowly turned to face me. No eyes, no mouth, just a featureless mass of bark and bone. Yet in my mind, I heard its voice clearly. You are chosen. The old ones wake. You will serve. My body convulsed. I collapsed, unable to move, the whispers filling every part of me. Time lost meaning. I drifted in and out of consciousness, trapped in nightmare visions, endless forest, blood-red sky, towering stone pillars, and beneath it all, an ancient presence stirring in the earth. When I woke again, the clearing was empty, the effigy gone, but the spiral marks had spread. Chest, legs, even my face, and in my heart I knew the deeper bond had been made. I was no longer merely lost, I was being claimed, and the forest would not let me go. I don't remember deciding to stop running. At some point, I simply walked, not toward escape, but deeper, as if some unseen thread now guided my steps. The forest had changed completely. The trees were enormous, ancient beyond comprehension, their roots exposed like veins. The ground was soft, spongy, covered in a black moss that muffled all sound. The sky above was no longer gray, but a deep, bruised purple, though no sun or moon shone. And the air felt thick with unseen presence, humming faintly, as if the land itself was alive. The whispers were constant now, no longer distant but in my ears, beneath my skin, speaking directly into my mind. You are marked. You are bound. You will serve. My limbs felt heavy, slow. I had not eaten in days, yet hunger no longer mattered. I should have been terrified, and part of me still was, but that part was shrinking, pushed aside by something older, something accepting. The spiral marks on my skin pulsed faintly with each step. They no longer hurt. They felt warm, alive. I no longer carried my pack. My sidearm was gone. I remembered dropping it somewhere in the mist, but felt no need to retrieve it. The deeper I went, the clearer the path became. Stones marked with spirals lined the way. The pale figures watched from the trees, no longer retreating but standing openly now, their heads following my movement. Some swayed gently, others stood rigid, their blank faces unreadable. I no longer tried to look away. A kind of numb calm had settled over me. After what felt like hours or days, I could no longer tell. The path opened into a vast hollow, deeper than any I had seen before. Towering stone pillars circled its edge, their surfaces covered in ancient carvings. In the center, a massive pit yawned, a black maw in the earth, from which cold air and low, resonant chanting rose. Around it stood dozens of the pale figures, heads bowed, arms outstretched. Without thought, I walked to the edge. The whispers crescendoed. I looked down into the pit and saw them, eyes, dozens, hundreds of eyes, opening slowly in the darkness below. Each one ancient, vast, filled with a cold, inhuman awareness. They looked up at me, through me, and I understood then. These were the old ones, the true masters of this place, of this land. Their will had shaped the forest, twisted the paths, marked the chosen, and now I was one of them. The voices spoke again, clearer than ever. You are home. You will serve. You will call others. The figures around the pit began to sway in unison, the chanting rising. I felt my body move of its own accord. Arms lifting, mouth opening, though no words were my own. A deep vibration coursed through me, linking me to the land, to the pit, to the will of those below. Time vanished. I existed only as part of the ritual. At some point, the chanting ceased. The figures stood still once more, and the eyes below closed. Not all, but some. Their hunger sated, for now. I awoke alone at the edge of the old wagon path near the forest's edge. It was full daylight. Birds sang. The air was warm. My pack was beside me, untouched. My clothes were torn, filthy, but dry. The spiral marks remained. The satellite phone worked again, full signal. I stumbled out to the road and hitchhiked back to town. No one questioned me. I told no one. But something had followed. Even now, back in my house, the spiral marks still pulse faintly beneath my skin. The dreams continue, of the pit, the chanting, the eyes. And sometimes, when I walk in the woods near home, I see the pale figures at the edge of my vision, watching, waiting. The pull grows stronger each day. I know the signs. I know I will return. Not because I want to, because I must. The forest has marked me. The old ones have chosen. And soon, when the call can no longer be denied, I will walk the path again. This time, not as an intruder, but as one of them. My name is Owen Keller. I am 43 years old. I live in Marion, Virginia, a quiet town nestled against the high ridges of the central Appalachian Mountains. For the past 15 years, I've worked as an independent consultant for regional power companies, inspecting old, abandoned utility lines and remote transmission stations deep in the mountains. A lot of those sites were built in the 40s and 50s, then left to rot when newer infrastructure bypassed them. It's lonely work, but I never minded. The isolation suited me. I'd spend days hiking alone into forgotten hollows and ridgelines where few ever go. The work always felt routine until last summer. That was when I was contracted to check an old substation site up on Wolf Pine Ridge, an isolated spur near the Virginia-Kentucky border. The site hadn't been logged or mapped in decades. It sat beyond any maintained road, deep in national forest. An old engineer I spoke with told me, half joking, that crews stopped going up there in the 60s after too many things went strange. I figured it was a story meant to spook the new guy. I'd heard plenty of those before. Still, Wolf Pine Ridge intrigued me. It was a blank spot on the modern grid maps. No updated coordinates, no recent surveys. I packed extra supplies and planned for an overnight trip. The hike in was tougher than I expected. The old Forest Service road had long since washed out. Thick undergrowth swallowed the path. My GPS struggled to hold a signal, so I relied on old paper topo maps. The deeper I went, the stranger the forest became. The trees were enormous, their trunks scarred with strange, spiral-like grooves that looked unnaturally uniform. The canopy blocked much of the sky. The air felt heavier. Still, I pressed on, reaching a narrow saddle by late afternoon. There, the forest opened briefly, revealing the remains of a crude access road leading up the ridge. Following it, I finally reached the substation site, or what was left of it. A chain-link fence, half collapsed, rusted transformers, a control shed, sagging but intact. The clearing felt wrong. The silence was absolute. No birds, no insects, just the faint hum of distant wind, though the air was still. I set up camp just outside the fence and made a quick inspection of the equipment. The station was long dead, no power, no cables intact. But something caught my eye, a series of deep, symmetrical gouges cut into the steel housing of one transformer, too uniform for weathering, too clean for age. I took photos, unsettled. That night, the ridge came alive in ways I couldn't explain. I woke just after midnight to a deep, resonant vibration. Not sound, but a physical pulse in the ground. The air grew icy cold. Outside my tent, faint lights flickered in the trees, pale blue, darting between trunks with unnatural speed. I watched in frozen disbelief as tall, thin figures emerged beyond the fence. The second day on Wolf Pine Ridge felt different from the start. The air was colder, denser, as though a storm was building, though the sky remained clear. The birds had not returned. The woods were silent, oppressive. Even my breathing seemed loud. I spent the morning photographing the strange gouges and markings, documenting everything. Yet the longer I stayed, the more disoriented I became. Simple movements took greater effort. My watch began losing time. The GPS flickered, refusing to lock coordinates. The paper map no longer matched the land around me. Familiar landmarks shifted or vanished entirely. By midday, I ventured deeper up the ridge. I was trying to locate what old records described as an auxiliary relay tower somewhere above the main site. The climb grew treacherous, the ground soft and uneven. Several times I found old steel anchor points half buried in earth and moss, relics of the tower's former presence. But no full structure remained. Instead, I stumbled upon a strange clearing, an unnatural ring where no trees grew, the soil blackened and dry. In its center stood a massive stone, crudely worked, its surface covered in spiraling carvings like those on the shed. The air around it shimmered faintly, and a low vibration pulsed through the ground beneath my boots. I approached, camera ready, but a wave of nausea struck me, sudden and violent. My vision blurred, my skin prickled with cold sweat. A voice, or something like a voice, whispered beneath the vibration. Marked, watched, claimed. The words were not heard with ears, but pressed into my mind. I stumbled back, heart racing. I could barely keep upright. The woods beyond the clearing shifted again. Shapes moved at the edge of vision, tall, thin figures like those seen the night before, though now their movements were smoother, more fluid. They watched in utter silence. I fled the clearing, crashing through dense undergrowth. Branches clawed at my face and arms. Every path seemed to loop back toward the stone, no matter which way I ran. Hours passed in a fevered haze. Daylight dimmed unnaturally. The sky above the canopy bled into a deep, bruised purple. Shadows lengthened. Finally, I burst back onto the substation clearing. I was breathless, disoriented, clothing torn, hands trembling. My camp had been disturbed again, gear scattered, tent stakes pulled free, though no wind had blown. New spiral markings marred the ground around the fence. Worse, the humming had returned, stronger than before, resonating in my chest. It felt like an unseen force was building beneath the ridge. I tried to make contact with my satellite phone. No signal. The unit displayed garbled symbols, its screen flickering in time with the pulse in the earth. Night fell quickly, unnaturally. The ridge was swallowed in a thick bluish mist. Shapes moved within it, tall gliding forms that seemed to phase in and out of reality. The humming crescendoed to a deep, thrumming drone. Lights flickered among the trees, blue-white orbs darting in impossible patterns. The figures drew closer, no longer lurking at the periphery. I saw them clearly now. Elongated humanoid shapes, skin pale and translucent, faces smooth and featureless, save for deep-set hollows where eyes might have been. They circled the clearing in perfect unison, movements synchronized with the vibration pulsing through the ground. I was rooted in place, unable to flee. My mind reeled under the pressure of the sound and presence pressing in on all sides. Then, without warning, the figures stopped, heads tilting sharply toward the dark forest beyond the clearing. Something larger moved there, unseen but vast. The vibration shifted, deeper, heavier. It felt as if something ancient and immense was stirring beneath the ridge itself. A voice, cold, without mercy, spoke again in my mind. "You are bound. You will carry us beyond." The words echoed through every fiber of my being. My vision dimmed, my legs buckled. I collapsed, consumed by cold and darkness. I don't know how long I lay there. When I awoke, the ridge was silent once more. Dawn light filtered weakly through the canopy. My gear was untouched now, neatly repacked as though by unseen hands. The spiral markings remained, burned faintly into the ground and into my skin, raw red patterns along my forearms. My satellite phone now displayed full signal again. My watch resumed normal time. It was as if nothing had happened, yet everything had. I should have fled then. Every rational thought screamed to leave. But something deeper, a compulsion not my own, drove me to stay one more night. I needed to understand what had marked me, what was stirring beneath Wolfpine Ridge, and why it had not yet claimed me completely. I spent that final day on Wolfpine Ridge in a strange, detached state. My body moved, but my mind felt distant, as though observing through a haze. The forest had changed again, subtle but unmistakable. Paths twisted in ways that defied logic. Trees leaned unnaturally, their trunks groaning softly as if under invisible strain. The air was heavy with static, each breath charged. The spiral marks on my skin itched and burned beneath my sleeves. When I touched them, they seemed to pulse faintly, in time with the deep vibration that now resonated constantly beneath my feet. I wandered the perimeter of the clearing, drawn again toward the ridge above where the stones stood. Each time I approached, nausea and vertigo forced me back, yet the pull remained, insistent, unrelenting. By late afternoon, dense mist rolled in from all directions, enveloping the ridge in a cold, blue-gray fog. The light dimmed far earlier than it should have. My equipment, compass, GPS, even my camera, ceased functioning entirely. The spiral marks on the ground seemed to glow faintly beneath the mist. That was when the voices returned, not whispers this time, but layered tones, harmonic and cold, filling the air around me. "You will serve. You will carry us. You will open the path." The meaning was clear, though how I understood it I could not say. I tried to resist, to will my body down the ridge, but my limbs refused. Step by step I was drawn back toward the ruined tower site, to the dark clearing where the stone awaited. The vibration intensified with each step, now rising through my bones, my teeth, my skull. The spiral carvings on the stone pulsed in time with it, bright with an inner light. Around the clearing, the pale figures gathered, dozens, perhaps more, silent, watching. Their forms shimmered in and out of the mist, as though phasing between this world and something else. At the edge of vision, larger shapes moved, immense, unseen. Their presence felt more than seen. The ground shuddered beneath my boots as a deeper force stirred below. I reached the stone. My hands moved without conscious thought, pressing against the spirals. The stone grew warm, then hot, burning my palms, though I could not pull away. The voices swelled. "Open the path! Bring the vessel!" Light erupted from the stone, spiraling upward in a column that pierced the mist and sky beyond. The pale figures knelt in unison. The vibration reached a fever pitch. In that moment, images flooded my mind, visions of the land as it once was, untouched by man, ruled by forces older than time. Of rituals performed on this very ridge, binding ancient presences beneath the earth. Of others, marked as I was, used to maintain that binding through countless generations. And now, the bindings were weakening, the cycle turning, a new vessel needed. I felt the presence beneath the ridge turn its gaze upon me, vast, cold, eternal. My will shattered. My voice joined the rising tones, though no words formed. My mind dissolved into light and sound. Then, silence. I awoke again at dawn, lying at the edge of the old access road, pack beside me, untouched. The ridge was empty, the clearing gone, the stone vanished. The mist burned away by the rising sun. No signs remained, save for the spiral marks now etched permanently into my flesh, pale and raised. My equipment worked again. My phone showed full signal. The world seemed normal, but I knew it was not. I made my way down the ridge in a daze, driving home without memory of the hours between. I filed no report, told no one. Weeks have passed now. The marks remain. At night, the vibration returns, faint but growing. I hear the voices again, beneath the hum of appliances, the distant wind. You will serve, the path will open. I see shapes in the shadows, lights in the woods behind my house. Each day the pull grows stronger. Soon I know I will return to Wolf Pine Ridge, not by choice, but by design. And when I do, the path will open. What waits beyond it, I do not dare imagine. But I will go, because I must, because I am marked, and the old ones beneath the ridge are waking.